It's time for Michigan's newest sports talk show, Mitten Madness.
And here he goes. Defense win championship.
Michigan sports talk from here in Battle Creek. The latest stories, the biggest games, all across the Mitten State.
That's not something to play with.
Streaming live and on demand on the 95.3 WBCK app. Here are your hosts, Jacob Harrison and Da'Jzon Hughes.
Well, hello there. Good morning. It is Mitten Madness on 95.3 WBCK. Jacob Harrison and Da'Jzon Hughes. We're set to talk Michigan sports for the next hour. Have some fun doing it. We've got Pistons, Red Wings, and college basketball stuff to get into with Michigan having a tough loss. Pistons are on a 3-game losing streak, but Red Wings turned it around and closed the month out strong with a 4-game winning streak. We'll get into all of that here in just a bit. Da'Jzon, how you doing, man?
It was a long week this week, but I cannot complain too much. This weekend's going to be awesome. College lacrosse starts back up this weekend. Pro lacrosse indoor is reaching some of the best part of the season. I'll be going to the Pistons game on Sunday, doing tons of basketball announcing this weekend. So a full weekend for me, but all surrounding in sports, and high school lacrosse is right around the corner. So literally the best part of the year outside of the weather.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hey, I'll take rain.
Oh, yes. Don't get me wrong. I will take rain over everything else we've had. But, I mean, if it could be sunny and warm, I'd also like that, too.
Yeah, well, I can be patient for that. but some rain to wash away the snow, not that it has been particularly effective, is not a bad thing. Yeah, my weekend is most likely going to be consisting of cleaning up the apartment and getting ready to move, starting to pack non-essentials and stuff like that. Got 2 months, but want to get ahead of things and make it easy.
Do a little bit day by day instead of all of it at the end.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. But it'll be nice to be just, like 5 minutes away from the station here in less than 2 months. So looking forward to that. But let's get into the Detroit Pistons. It's been a fun season. They've been way better than even the lowest bar that we set for them, which was doubling the win total, which their next win will do. Unfortunately, well, first of all, that is
bad math.
Well, it's not bad math. It's the Mavericks game happened Friday night. We're recording Friday afternoon.
Well, no, because they had 14 wins last
year. They had 14? It was bad math. So don't do math on the radio, kids.
We are close. We are close to the destination.
Right,
That's the important part.
Yeah. I guess what I should say is they're going to do that and then some. They're in a position still as we head towards the trade deadline and the All-Star break. They're still in a position to fight for a playoff spot in the East, and by all accounts, really and truly, they should get one. That said, this 3-game losing streak, obviously we don't know what happened against the Mavericks. I anticipate that they'll win that game, but I also said that before the 3-game losing streak. Tough losses in here. Understandable to the Cavs. Cavs are number one in the East. They're a dominant force to be reckoned with, but still we've seen Detroit stand up to those teams and lose close instead of big. Comfortable win from Indiana over Detroit as well. Obviously, the as you've taught me, in division stuff doesn't really matter all that much, but still these are the teams that are right next to you, and you got humbled a little bit. That said, all right, that's how they close out a 5-game road streak. They're going to be home to start February for a good chunk here. Any concern out of how those 3 games went and when they went that way? I mean, considering where we're at in the schedule with the trade deadline?
I wouldn't say concerned. Obviously you want to look at like tiebreakers later in the year. That's where some of that is going to be concerning. And then the big part is that these are teams, like you said, that are near you in the standings, near you as far as skill level on the floor. You got to win some of these games. They win against the Magic and the Pacers, who are both right there in front of them.
Yeah.
You take those 2 losses away, add 2 wins to the win column. You're taking a loss and a win away from them in the same retrospect. The Pistons are 5th in the East.
Yeah.
5th.
Like I said, they should get a playoff spot. They shouldn't even have to be in the play-in.
There's no reason to be concerned, no reason to panic, no reason to do anything. The Pistons are in a phenomenal spot right now.
Unbelievable.
All they have to do is keep playing the way they have been, and they're at least getting a play-in opportunity. which is where I said this team should have been last year. And I think that if we look at the objectives of it, who was on the floor, who was coaching, the, attitude surrounding the team, they had what they had this year in terms of coaching and attitude. That team last year is probably in this position fighting for a play-in spot.
Yeah, talent-wise, last year I think they were closer to play-in territory, and it just did not go that way. But I think, too, and being what it is, everything you've said about this team for the past year and a half has been spot on. But even with the talent that they had last year, they've improved on that talent. Like we talked about last week, they got veteran talent. They got guys who know how to win and to keep this train rolling. And I think that has been a big part. That said, mentioning the Pacers game, tough break there for Detroit, because not only do you lose big, but when you're down 14 early in the second quarter and Isaiah Stewart gets knocked out of the game, 6th flagrant foul point of the season, and he's now going to be suspended for a period of time. Also going to have to eat a $50,000 fine. Could lose up to like $86,000 in salary. Tough break for him. Is that something, to stick onto the concerning aspect? Does that play a role in how you feel about the team in the next coming week or so?
It's gonna affect the next game, which is what's just happened,
right?
Which we don't have the means of knowing what's going to go on there. So that can make that Dallas Mavericks game tougher, but it's not a big deal.
Well, I mean, from the larger aspect of this is a recurring theme with Stewart at this point.
No, because you got to look at the NBA and you got to look at how the game is played. You got to have that kind of guy that's going to be no nonsense and just let you know that you can't come in and look at the Warriors and their success.
I was going to say, are you advocating for Draymond Green right now?
I'm not advocating for it, but I think a portion of their success is due to Draymond Green and the way he plays and the attitude he brings to the floor. Isaiah Stewart is that person for the Pistons. The attitude that him and Jalen Duren bring to the floor and the energy that they bring and how they play, that changes how other teams come into Little Caesars Arena, how other teams take the floor when they play the Pistons. I think you worry more when there are technical fouls on the line. Because what I think with flagrant fouls is it's just like every other call in a game. It's referee discretion. Yeah. The referee has to decide if he feels like you were making a basketball play or not.
Yeah.
Technical foul is clearly outside of the rules, and you did something that you were not supposed to do that everybody knows is not acceptable. That's where I think you start to look at it as a bigger issue. Here, he's playing basketball, being rough. It's a physical game. Sometimes the ref is going to go, hey, you hit him on purpose. That's a flagrant. Not a big deal. I would brush past it. Even as a coach, I'd be like, hey, can we make a play on the ball? That's probably all I have to say.
Can we focus on the objective?
Can you at least
please?
try to make it look like you're making a play on the ball? And then we move on from there. It's not a huge thing in my opinion.
Yeah, I can reason with that. Biggest news, of course, for the Pistons to bury the lead just a touch, is the fact that Cade Cunningham has broken a streak that dates back, I think, 6 years for the Pistons of not having an all-star. It's the longest streak in team history. And it comes to an end. Cade Cunningham, an NBA All-Star in 2025. And damn it, did he deserve it?
I say very well deserved. I mean, he's leading this team in most statistical categories. I mean, he's brought this team from a 14-win team to a 23-win team in a matter of a few months. It's only been 6-8 months since the end of the last season, and they're already doing so much better. Part of being an all-star is bringing your team to success.
Yeah.
His level of play is not only elevated for himself, but he's elevated everyone else's level of play. He's averaging almost a double-double, 25 and 9.3 assists. This man's giving you almost 10 assists a game. That's insane. There's no way he doesn't deserve, all-star. I think he deserved all-star starter. I think that's a little bit tougher when you look at the guard play in the East. Yeah. You look at some of the stars that are in the East. It would be tough for him to get there. But if he keeps this level of play, we're talking all NBA teams. We're talking multiple starters in all-star games in the future. We're talking playoff appearances. We're talking playoff series wins, conference championships.
Yeah.
Maybe not winning them, but at least getting there. He has the ability to be a star player and be your franchise player, and he's showing that this year to an unreal level.
I mean, look, the history that exists with Detroit basketball, I think you look at the makeup of the team and you can't necessarily apples to apples compare it, but some recurring themes with the fact that you've got your star player at point in Cade Cunningham, who is doing something that hasn't been done in a while for the franchise. And you've also got some aggressiveness from the big guys underneath. It sounds a little bit like how Detroit basketball used to be played when championships were not just a standard, but almost an expectation. And now you've kind of got that same makeup, and Cade Cunningham has played a huge part in that. And it's still funny. I will say, I told you not 5 minutes ago that almost everything you said was right. There was still that sliver of doubt of, is Cade Cunningham really going to be a star player in the NBA? And we're going to find that out within the next, season or two. And last year was tough to gauge because of the fact that team underperformed at such a drastic level. And he himself, having been the first overall pick, wasn't bringing the success on his own. And I think in a lot of ways it gets lost on the fact that even in the NBA, where you've only got 15 guys on the roster and you cycle coaches like absolutely crazy, it still takes more than just one guy. Sometimes. I mean, it depends if they're LeBron James level prodigies, that's completely different. Cade Cunningham wasn't that. But the fact that he was such an instrumental asset in turning this thing around and making gradual success and then paying it off with an all-star appearance is going to be incredible. So, Detroit fans have a reason to tune in to what they're changing up some of the all-star stuff this year. So, something new to watch, and you get to watch a guy from the Motor City perform. So that'll be exciting. All right. We'll take a break. When we come back, it's time to talk about the Red Wings here on Mitten Madness, 95.3 WBCK. All right, we're back here on Mitten Madness, 95.3 WBCK. Jacob Harrison and Da'Jzon Hughes. Let's talk Detroit Red Wings. So coming out of the break, I said something about this being a start turnaround. It's not a start turnaround. The Red Wings are 12-4 in their last 16 games. That's pretty good. In fact, January has been very good to them with the winning streaks that they have had. A couple of frustrating losses. Losing to the Sharks to close out a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 game winning streak it's hilarious in retrospect. 3-game losing streak didn't feel too good either, but now they're back on track. 4-game winning streak. They've got the Calgary Flames tonight. That'll be a big one to try to put back in the win column. But up to 25, 21, and 5, they're still pretty far back when it comes to the Atlantic Division, but it's a strong division. Just 1 point behind Boston, 2 points behind Tampa Bay, and 3 points behind Ottawa. Those last two teams, the Red Wings beat the last time they played them. They've also handled Florida a number of times, and Florida's on top of the division alongside Toronto. But of course, included in that 4-game winning streak was an emphatic victory over Montreal and a big win over Tampa Bay. So a lot of good things happening here for the Red Wings, and at just the right time. I mean, we're heading into February and nearing that stretch in the NHL where it's starting to be a drive to the postseason. That said, I still don't think the Red Wings get a whole lot of respect for the month that they put together. ESPN's power rankings, they only move up from 24 to 20. Things haven't been perfect, but come on, that seems a little low for a team that might be in the race to get to the postseason. It's not a guarantee because of the way the division is stacked up, but it appears to me that Detroit's getting a little bit of a shaft there from ESPN, especially with Montreal being ranked just behind them in those power rankings. But I mean, all in all, things looking up for the Red Wings, DJ.
Well, let me just say power rankings are done so wrong.
Oh, they are.
On every level of every sport at every time. They're not accurate. Like, power rankings should be like, if it's a week by week thing, then you're looking at the last week. If it's a month by month thing, you are looking at the last month.
Right.
You're not looking at the entire season as a whole, which I think happens oftentimes in power rankings. When you look at where the Red Wings are ranked in the power rankings, it's taking their entire season into account, which their power ranking, if that is what the criteria is pretty accurate. They are right in that middle of the pack bunch trying to figure out what it is they're doing. That is completely accurate. Now, if we want to do a true power ranking off of the last month, the Detroit Red Wings are a top 12, 15 team in the league.
Yeah.
Probably closer to that 12 to 10. They've been playing great hockey. You don't go out and beat the Habs 4-2, the Lightning 2-0, the Kings 5-2, the Oilers 3-2 in a comeback effort and not be one of the top teams in the league at the moment. They might not be top teams in the league all season, but if you're looking at who's playing right now and how they're playing right now, the Red Wings have to be in many conversations, especially with Dylan Larkin and Lucas Raymond seeming to find their wings for the season. I think them really stepping into that role that they were playing last year, producing, putting up numbers, and bringing the energy every night, being leaders, is really starting to show this season, which, if we want to be honest, this is about that time that they hit that stride last year as well. They may be in the conversation for a playoff spot at the end of the year in terms of wild card. I don't think they're going to win an outright playoff spot, but wild card will be talks because they're hitting a good stride right now. But of course, they have to maintain that through the months of February, March, and April before they get into playoff play.
Yeah, at the moment, they are just 2 spots out of the second wild card spot. Columbus currently has that. Columbus has 2 overtime losses compared to Detroit's 5, and they both have 25 wins. Boston is also ahead, but they've also got 6 overtime losses. I said Detroit started last year a lot stronger, but they didn't have the overtime losses, and that kind of played its role. This year started off a little bit weaker than expected, go through a coaching change, surge after the coaching change. You've got some overtime losses. You've got some incredibly impressive victories stacked in a couple of big winning streaks as well. And I'm just looking at other teams that are like in that middle of the pack category along with Detroit. And most of them, I mean, the Islanders are 8-2 in their last 10. Columbus is 7-2-1 in their last 10. But everybody else is not necessarily tracking the same way as Detroit, with Boston being 5-4-1, Tampa being 5-5, including the loss to Detroit. And Montreal is 4-4-2. I still get the impression that they're overperforming, especially considering where they came from last year. All things being equal, Detroit, I think, is a little bit more in control of their destiny than maybe some, I don't know, broad sweeping national writers of the NHL might want to believe, especially considering the fact that they, are on their second head coach of the season. That might play a role in that as well. But being able to control your own destiny when you've got the significant wins over teams like Florida and Ottawa, you got to catch up to Boston, but hey, at least you're able to handle Tampa. I think they're 2-1 against Tampa this season so far. So things are falling the right way for Detroit. What they've got to do is carry over the January successes into February. And I think you've got some opportunities to do that because there are some portions of this part of the schedule that are not, the most difficult. Calgary is kind of in that same boat as them. Vancouver is in that same boat as them. Seattle, is a little bit lower on the totem pole in the West. And those are the next 3 games. And then you've got Tampa again with another opportunity to impress in the East. I mean, if you're able to handle those teams that are closer in line to you, all 3, those 3 games that I just mentioned are on the road before they come back home to Tampa. That should prove some worth if they're able to pull something out there. I don't know, like a 3-1 record in those 4 games. I think you start to feel really, really good about where the team is heading, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're in a good position to kind of just play hockey and be in a position where they control their own destiny. I think needing other teams to lose more than you have to win is a bad place to be in. And they're trending toward being in a position where it matters more the games they're winning than their, opponents losing games. It matters so much more for you to go out and win your game and get your points than it is for that team to drop a game and drop in the standings. You're trying to rise up or you're trying to maintain your spot by winning your games because you control your destiny. When you start looking for help, when you start, having to have X team beat Y team and you need Y team to tie Z team over there, and then you need Z team to lose 2 games, which is going to help you in a tiebreaker down the road, you're in trouble. But right now, this team is in a position where They're maybe needing a loss or two from a team ahead of them, and then they have to win their own games. So they're more so controlling their own destiny than needing, looking, asking for help. And I think that's the important thing to look at is the last 2 years, the Red Wings have been in control of their destiny. Last year, they didn't do a good job of finishing the task and getting where they would like to be. They find themselves back in that scenario this year. Things could be different, and they could find themselves playing the playoffs like they want to.
Yeah, it's still this is kind of that part of the season where, you know, the best of the best have to start separating themselves, and the weak teams are going to completely fall off. You know, like the other weak teams that started the season badly and haven't improved. But there is such a huge cluster of teams that are right around where Detroit is. And I know they've got 3 Western Conference games coming up. But I mean, you can improve your own stock in the East by winning some of those games. And then when those Eastern games come back, like I said, after this 3-game road stretch, you get Tampa Bay back. Handle business against Tampa Bay. Who cares what happens to Tampa Bay in the meantime? If you can handle business against the teams that are directly in front of you, things are going to go in your way. You're going to go your favor. You know, you're not going to just steal wins while you're losing to the other conference. I don't, you know, momentum and those types of things have to play some type of role. So I feel like, you know, things being what they are, you kind of have to take last year and learn from it. Like you said, you were in control of your own destiny and you did not take advantage of the situation. That said, this year, impression his team operates just a touch bit differently in a lot of ways. I mean, what is the thing you think that they need to improve on in order to do, like we're saying, control your own destiny successfully?
Just managing the game. You know, where are your turnovers? Where are you causing turnovers? What does your forecheck look like? You have to clean up defensive end and neutral zone turnovers. You have to cause those same turnovers and then put pucks on net. That's just basic hockey. I don't think they're not doing anything. I don't think they're doing anything wrong. I don't think they're doing anything great. I think they're just playing good hockey. You got to take it to the next level, play great hockey, and just continue to do all the things that you're currently doing. And I mean, you're looking at it. They play Calgary, Vancouver, Seattle, Tampa Bay, Minnesota twice, Anaheim, and Columbus in the month of February. Then they start March 1st with Columbus. So back-to-back games against Columbus. Out of those 8-9 games I just referenced off, only 2 of those teams are significantly better than you. Only 2. So there's a chance for you to make up a lot of ground here, get some games back against people or opponents within your conference and your and then also just really solidify how you want to play for the year. So they're in a good spot in my opinion. You just have to continue to do hockey things in the hockey way.
I mean, there's still, you know, obviously after this 4-game stretch is the break, and then you come back and there's a difficult task ahead, you know, in reclaiming the momentum that you had for yourself, and you know the ways that you were able to win before might not be as effective after a 2-week break. So it'll be interesting to see how they close out this coming week, kick off February strong, get through the break, and how they perform in that last bit of that stretch. You mentioned the Minnesota, Anaheim, Minnesota, Columbus stretch. It's not the easiest stretch in the world, especially with Columbus being on the back end of that, and you really need those wins over Columbus. You know, it's going to be a fun stretch here for Detroit this month. So we'll continue to break that down as things happen. But when we come back next, it's time to talk about some Michigan and Michigan State college basketball. Michigan is reeling a little bit. We'll tell you if DJ is worried next on Mitten Madness. It's 95.3 WB.
Detroit sports fans, Wolverines and Spartans alike. This is your sports show, Mitten Madness, with Jacob Harrison and Da'Jzon Hughes on 95.3 WBCK.
All right, we're back here on Mitten Madness, 95.3 WBCK. Jacob Harrison and Da'Jzon Hughes. It is time to talk about some college basketball because it's getting closer to March. We are now exactly 4 weeks away from the month of March, which means it's time to start taking that bracketology stuff a little bit more seriously. Start paying attention to the teams that are moving and shaking. And one of those teams is the Michigan State Spartans, who are now ranked number 7 in the country. They're 18-2. They are on a blistering run. They haven't lost a game since North Carolina, and that was a long time ago. That was November. So we're 2 months into the stretch for the Michigan State Spartans. They've picked up big wins over Illinois, Rutgers, and they did something that Michigan could not do. They beat Minnesota. So good run here for the Spartans. They've got USC, UCLA, and Oregon on deck to kick off this first week and some change for the month of February. USC later today at 4:30 p.m. That one's on the road. DJ, just your thoughts on Michigan State. It's tough to go anywhere, but start looking ahead to March when it comes to this team, because they've handled their business. Yes,
but like I said, there's that caveat with the Illinois game, kind of that asterisk with the way the officiating went and kind of how that game played out with their best player and everything. I'm looking very much forward to that next game when they battle. I think their game against Rutgers was huge, because you have 2 NBA talents, 2 possible lottery picks on the Rutgers squad who are balling week in and week out, game in and game out, and they were able to come out with a tough victory there. But I think what they're stepping into is the toughest part of their schedule, and we're going to really find out what the Michigan State Spartans have, because USC, okay, we can kind of overlook that. Not necessarily overlook it, but it's not one that is eye-popping. UCLA is on a 4, 5, 6 game win streak right now. Mm-hmm. You need to be concerned, especially because you're on the road. You're in Los Angeles. They're playing at home. They're comfortable in front of their crowd. That's a game to be worried and looked at. Kind of keep your eyes on it, and kind of all the Spartan fans got to be putting their full energy into that game to give them some extra help. You got Oregon coming into town on the 8th. That's a huge game. Illinois on the road on the 15th. That's a game you also have to look at and make sure that you go out and do what you did the first time when they were here at the Breslin. You got to go down and you got to beat them in Champaign. If you don't, some questions are going to arise. As much as I don't think this team is really that good, number 10 ranked Purdue, you're bringing them into Breslin. You have to win that game as well, because it is a high-ranked game. I will touch more on the Purdue thing in just a moment.
I know.
Trust me.
For all those listening, I just gave Da'Jzon a look. Yeah. He said, I'm not so sure that they're that good.
Yeah, we going to talk about why he gave me that look in just a moment. Don't worry. But then right after that, you play Michigan. So you have Purdue on the 18th, Michigan on the 21st, ranked Wisconsin. And then you have Michigan again on March 9th. So the ending part of their season is the toughest part of the year for them. So we're really going to find out what the Spartans are made of. But I think that they win 4, 5, 6 of these, like half of these, and they're a lock for the NCAA tournament. Doesn't really matter how many they lose. Like, they just have too many good wins at that point to take them out. It'll just be a matter of seeding after that point. Where does the bracketology put them at that moment? Right now, they're a 2 seed. They keep playing this well, they may find themselves creeped up into that 1 seed, especially if they end Big Ten play undefeated. So those are kind of the things to look at when it comes to the guys wearing green and white in East Lansing playing in the Breslin Center for the Spartans.
I think they're actually a 3 seed at the moment. We're splitting hairs at that.
I think a lot of that is subject at the moment. When you really look at it, they're marking, it pretty much goes straight down the line for the top 25. And then things get a little weird with the 7s, 7, 8, 9s. That's when it starts to get weird, because you've run out of
that's
4. You've run out of 4 teams to go with by 6. You know, so that's where the mix is in. So at this moment, they should be a 2 or a 3, which is good for them. If they're ending Big Ten undefeated, they're probably looking at a 1 seed.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't think that it's out of the realm of possibility that they could run that table. I understand that you're saying, and I'm not overlooking any of these. USC could slip them up today. USC's got some impressive wins on their resume. Nothing too crazy or outlandish. They are 5-4 in division though. So they're one of those types of teams that can get in your way. UCLA is another one, for the second game, staying in LA. That's not an easy environment to try to win in. UCLA's on the up and up. Then you've got to come back all the way to the States and take on Oregon. That's a ranked matchup. So I'm not glossing over the fact that this is a difficult schedule. It clearly is, but not out of the realm of possibility that they just walk this thing through, because they've got the impressive wins behind them already that kind of gives credence to their number 7 ranking, to the fact that they're 18-2. Obviously, tight loss to Kansas, big win over North Carolina, 3-point difference there. Handled business against Illinois as well. Not a lot of craziness on the schedule so far, but you also mentioned the fact of how you beat Rutgers when Rutgers is one of the scrappier teams in the conference as well. So there's a lot of positive takeaways for Michigan State as we get closer to March, but it'll be interesting to see how they traverse the most difficult part of their schedule when everything is on the line. They've been on top of the Big Ten all year long, and if you're saying go green, go white, you'd like to stay there, especially just given the circumstances. I mean, it's time for Sparty to make some noise in March again, right? And they've got a great opportunity to do that. Another team we're expecting to make some noise in March once we get there is the Michigan Wolverines. However, things have not been as peachy as they were in December. And that's because 2 games after the very disappointing loss to Minnesota, the Wolverines do not get back on track, and they head down to Fort Wayne or wherever Purdue is, and they take on Purdue, and they get blasted. DJ, what happened against the Boilermakers? Lafayette. I don't know why.
Because there is a Purdue Fort Wayne.
That's why. Yes. Every time I drive through Fort Wayne, I see the Purdue thing, and it makes me think they're there, and they're not. Anyway, regardless, I don't like going to Indiana.
None of us do. Don't worry. None of us
reminds me too much of Alabama.
But, I mean, to be honest, I'm not too upset. You get a 4-point win over Northwestern, who's been playing good basketball in the Big Ten. You get a 4-point win over Penn State, who's also playing good basketball in the Big Ten. You lose a heartbreaker to Minnesota at the buzzer. Like what I mean,
3-7 and 3-8. These are 2 teams at the bottom of the Big Ten.
Yes, but they're losing games by 4 points, which means they could also be 5-6 or 5-3 in the Big Ten. It's so weird.
Yeah, the context around that matters. Yeah,
it's the context piece there. But the bigger thing here is they went out and lost to a Purdue team that was hot. I watched that game. The amount of points Michigan had at the end of the game was what Purdue put up in the first half. They couldn't miss. It's not that Michigan isn't good enough. It's not that Purdue is 30 points better than Michigan. It's that Purdue had a hot game. We've all seen it in any kind of sport. Teams come out and just dominate a team that they really aren't that much better than because they're having a good day and the other team isn't. We'll find out exactly how much better Purdue is if that's the case when they come to the Chrysler Center on the 11th. But until then, I think Michigan's in a good spot. They're fine. They have to clean up their turnovers. That is the problem. They cannot hang on to the ball. They turn it over at an alarming rate, and it is costing them games. All their games this year are due to turnovers. They lost that game or allowed a team to come in and steal a game because the game was close due to the turnovers that Michigan had in the game. You clean up the turnovers, Michigan maybe has a loss or 2 this year. Maybe. They could possibly still be undefeated right now. Except for probably the Purdue game. Because like I said, they were just hot. But other than that, every loss Michigan has had has been their fault.
I'll say this. I'm not so sure that I'm in the Michigan shouldn't be worried camp because the turnovers are alarming. You have got to clean that up if you're going to make any noise in March. But they do play solid enough basketball to skate by in a lot of situations. That said, they're not quite close to being dominant and being somebody that you're like, oh, they're gonna go far in the tournament. They've got a lot to prove throughout the month of February to show that they're not defined by these turnovers. Big game today against Rutgers on the road, 3:30 p.m. on Fox. They've got Oregon before Michigan State, so that's going to be a little bit more difficult than it would be if it were the other way around and maybe Oregon was coming off of a loss. And then they've got Purdue in just 10 days. And a chance to redeem themselves a little bit on their own court. But we'll continue to keep an eye on all of that as it progresses. But when we come back, it is time for us to make our picks. It's Mitten Madness on 95.3 WBCK.
95.3 WBCK.
All right, we're back here on Mitten Madness, 95.3 WBCK. Jacob Harrison and Da'Jzon Hughes. We are ready to make our picks for the week just as soon as we know what the standings are. DJ's in first and I'm in second.
Yes, but last week I made the mistake of putting a fight on the schedule that's not until this week. So only 5 games for us last week. We both went 3-2 since we were same down the line. That has me at 82 and 55. You're close behind at 78 and 59.
Close
so
behind.
The chances are there. The opportunities are there. let's see what you have.
Didn't we all pick all the same last week?
Yes.
Yeah. So the chances may come this week depending on how aggressive I am. I don't anticipate being that aggressive because I don't want to lose worse than I already am, but we'll see. First game I got up for us is down in the old SEC. It's Mississippi State and the damn Cowbells. They're going to host the Missouri Tigers. Do they ring the cowbells in the basketball arena? I can't think of a fresher hell.
I pray they don't, but I wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised either. Kids ain't got no sense down in Mississippi. Anyway, thank God for Mississippi, so Alabama ain't last and everything. The Tigers are ranked number 20 in the country. The Bulldogs are ranked number 14. Two very evenly matched teams in a huge SEC matchup between two teams that kind of sandwich that second tier of the SEC of teams trying to figure out, can they break away and make a run to March, or are they going to waste away this season? Something tells me the loser of this one is going to have a tough time over the next few weeks. DJ, who do you got between the Tigers and the Bulldogs?
This one's pretty easy for me. I do like that Missouri's 5-2 in the conference. They have some nice wins under their belt. A win at ranked Florida, a win at over Vanderbilt, who's played great ball this year, and they have a win over ranked Ole Miss. But you look over at the other side. Mississippi State has a couple losses, but they lost to Tennessee, who's 5th in the country right now. They lost to Auburn, who's number 1 in the country right now. They lost to Alabama, who's like 8th or 4th or something like that. 4th. In the country right now. So their last 3 losses are to the top ranked teams in the country. You gain experience from that. You get better from that. And you're playing good ball if you're competing. I mean, it's a 4-point loss to Alabama, a 12-point loss to Tennessee, and then they got handled by Auburn. But you're competing. I'm going to take Mississippi State because they're playing good ball.
So there was a brief moment there where I was with you because they barely lost to Alabama. And I know some of my Tide friends were sweating that game. Getting crushed by Tennessee and Auburn ain't no thing, right? That's kind of to be expected. But taking overtime to beat South Carolina, taking overtime to beat Ole Miss is a strange dichotomy. Whereas Missouri just beat Mississippi. Missouri just beat Arkansas. Missouri just beat Florida. Florida's number 5 in the country. You know what I'm saying? So I think Missouri is higher up in the SEC rankings for a reason. That's the 4th best team just based off the standings in a very powerful conference. I think Missouri picks up a big and much needed win here.
I think you're crazy, but I think I'm going to take us over to the ACC for a definite battle on the court. It doesn't matter where these teams are ranked, who's good, who's bad. These are two teams that give their absolute all when they see each other to find out which blue is the better blue. North Carolina Tar Heels heading on over to Cameron Indoor in Durham, North Carolina to take on the Blue Devils. Blue Devils 89.6% chance to win, coming in 10-0 in the conference, number 2 team in the country. Can the Tar Heels stun them on the road, or will Duke make the Cameron Crazies do their thing?
Oh, Duke's
go
got
insane.
This Duke's got this one in the bag. It's zero doubt. Duke Blue Devils, they win impressively over their rivals.
I want to say that there's no doubt in my mind, but there's slight doubt. UNC knows how important this game is. They have RJ Davis. They have Seth Trimble. Those two are playing good ball and carrying this team far. I don't think they have any answers for Cooper Flagg. And I think that's where this really comes down. I think this game will be closer than a lot of people think. I don't know that. I think UNC covers. The spread is 13.5. I think UNC covers that. This game's a little bit closer than that, but Duke by far is going to win.
Next up, we're going to take a trip out to Texas in the Big 12. The Houston Cougars, who are undefeated in Big 12 play, 17-3, number 6 team in the land. They are going to host the Texas Tech Red Raiders, who are 7-2 in the conference, number 22 in the country. Texas Tech is on a 5-game winning streak. Houston's on a 13-game winning streak. Houston's one of the most impressive teams in the entire country. One of the programs that always draws my attention when I start to pay some attention to college basketball, because there's never been a team take advantage so well of moving up into a power conference like the Houston Cougars basketball program. Completely world-changing. DJ, who do you got, though? Do you think the Red Raiders, who have found themselves in the glory of March Madness plenty of times recently, or do you got the Houston Cougars, who are on top right now?
As much as I think Texas Tech has played phenomenal basketball, and they're really putting themselves on the map. I think 7-2 in the Big 12 is great. I think that they are going to be able to find themselves in a nice spot when bracketology starts to really break down. But they have no match for Houston. Houston has one of the best defenses in the country, only giving up 55.3 points per game. That's huge.
That's wild.
And they're rebounding at a great clip at 38 rebounds a game. They're able to close out possessions. I think Houston handles this one pretty easily at home.
Yeah, I don't know about easily. I do think it'll be a good game. I mean, Houston just beat UCF by 1 point, half a month ago. So, that said, they followed that up by beating Utah 70-36. They can put the bang thing on you when they need to. I think Texas Tech will show up, but I don't think they have enough to win Houston.
That's going to take us over to going down in the Big East this time. Marquette playing host to the defending national champions. The UConn Huskies are 25th in the country right now, 7-3 in the Big East, 15-6 on the year. The Golden Eagles, far different. Number 9 in the country, 18-3 on the year, 9-1 in that Big East. 65.5% chance for those Golden Eagles. Do they continue staying golden and winning, or are the Huskies going to come in and continue to assert their dominance over Marquette?
So I'm looking at the team stats here, and I'm like, wow, this is impressive. UConn, I think UConn, and then I see that the Golden Eagles average 10 steals a game. UConn, you best not turn the ball over. You're going to lose. I'm going to take UConn because of their scoring prowess, which is better than Marquette's. Marquette likes to beat you down and grind you down. But I'm going to take the flash with UConn. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm seeing some of these scores, and they're a little interesting, especially when you do the comparisons. But that's what makes me think this is going to be a very good game. You look at UConn beating DePaul by 11 and Marquette only beating them by 2 in overtime. But then you look at Marquette beating Butler by 9, but then UConn only beats Butler by 2 in overtime. Right?
They both lost
to Xavier.
It's a middle of the road team in the conference.
It's interesting how this is shaking out, but I do think the defense is a huge part, which feeds into the energy. And then they're playing at home and Fiserv Forum, so those Marquette fans are going to be there. I got Marquette coming out on top in this one.
Offense wins games, defense wins championships. I guess that's the mentality I was taking there. Back to the SEC. Huge top 10 matchup. Number 5, Florida, heading up to Rocky Top, Tennessee, to take on the Vols. They're liars, they're cheaters, they're dirty, they're snitches, and I don't like them. But damn it if they ain't good at basketball. That said, 3 of their last 4, the Vols have dropped, losing to Kentucky, Auburn, and Vanderbilt since January 18th, whereas the Gators are undefeated since January 18th, picking up wins over Texas, South Carolina, and UGA, teams that are at the bottom of the conference. DJ, it's still a huge game in the Food City Center. Who do you got in Knoxville, Florida or Tennessee?
I'm going to go Tennessee here, and I only have it because this is at the Food City Center in Knoxville. I think Tennessee has played better ball at home than they have on the road, which you can say for most NCAA college basketball teams is they play better in front of their fans when they don't have to travel, but it's a true advantage for them. Florida hasn't played great on the road. I mean, a 1-point win over South Carolina, an 8-point win over Arkansas, 2 teams that are not doing well in the Big Ten. Or the SEC. I know it's tough to play on the road in the SEC, but you got to win games at home. And Tennessee's going to do that this weekend.
So it's tough to win on the road in every sport.
Facts.
It's not just an SEC thing. It's one of those things. I'm with you though. I agree. This is home field advantage situation for Tennessee. I don't think Florida is quite as impressive offensively to overcome Tennessee, who is they're a more rigid by the books type of team, have been for a long time. They play sound fundamentals and sound basketball, and it leads to a lot of wins. I think some of these losses are they're tight, fluky losses. Not necessarily fluky when it comes to like Auburn, but they had to play some tight games and they lost them. against really good teams, Kentucky and Auburn. Vanderbilt's one of the better teams that you wouldn't expect in the SEC from time to time. A little bit more of a rivalry there. So, long way of saying it. I'm taking Tennessee.
That takes us to our last game. This one going to be in the NBA. Little Caesars Arena right over in Detroit, 3 p.m. The Bulls coming into town. Are the Pistons going to continue their winning ways as Zach LaVine sits out for the Bulls and Cade Cunningham is going to be an all-star on the floor? Or do the Bulls come in and shock the Pistons?
I'll say this. Zach LaVine being down creates a lot of confidence to pick Detroit. I'm curious how Detroit's going to come back out after this 3-game losing streak. Obviously, the Mavs game is between this, and that will tell you a lot. But being back at home after such a stretch, I think they take advantage and they take care of the Bulls.
I'm going to go with the Pistons as well, and my explanation is much more simple than yours. I'm going to be in attendance, and I've only seen them lose one game, so I don't think that changes anytime soon. That is going to take us to the end of our picks. We both have Duke, Tennessee, the Pistons, and Houston. You've got UConn, I've got Marquette, I've got Mississippi State, you've got Mizzou. Send us into another weekend, sir.
All right. All that's up this weekend on WBCK is the Pro Bowl games, and that will happen tomorrow from 3 until 6. If you want to get a little bit of a preview of Super Bowl 59 and a reminder of the things that happened in the Pro Bowl concerning Jared Goff and some of the Detroit Lions, because we were not going to spend any amount of time talking about that. You're welcome to do that tomorrow from 3 until 6. Westwood One's presentation of the Pro Bowl games, a 3-hour show previewing Super Bowl 59 as well. We will carry Super Bowl 59 on the station as well, and you can stream it anywhere, and that will be coming at you day of game. Big game Sunday. We will have Super Bowl 59. But that's going to do it for us this week. Next week, we'll talk about the Super Bowl. We'll pick our games, and we'll have some more fun here on Mitten Madness. We'll see you later. For Da'Jzon Hughes, I'm Jacob Harrison. Take it easy.
Join Jacob Harrison and Da'Jzon Hughes every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. for Mitten Madness on 95.3 WBCK. Miss the show or want to run it back? Stream Mitten Madness on demand on the WBCK app. Sponsored by AirwayCashForJunkCars.com.